First, before we start, I would thank 𝐀𝐮𝐿 team for having us here. And we'll also take this opportunity to congratulate the entire 𝐀𝐮𝐿 team, their leadership for hosting this 17th edition of the Manufacturing IT Summit today. And this is no small achievement, I must say, 17 years and you've been able to foresee the transformative impact of technology and the possibilities of tech usage in manufacturing domain. I think exceptional, and thanks for having all of us here today. So while we begin with the session, let me just give you a quick context that we all know that this whole pandemic, the COVID pandemic has actually accelerated adoption of the new digital working practices. And while it has created multiple opportunities for companies who are offering such new digital technologies and those who are adopting such technologies, but also on the other hand created an existential crisis for many traditional non-digital businesses. So it's like it's a huge divide, so to say, a digital divide which has got created. And like in our company, I represent India Glycols, and we besides our other products, we also are into chemicals and some pharma products, medical oxygen, hand sanitizers manufacturing, which come under the umbrella of essential supplies. And during the COVID, we had to make sure that there was no shortage of these essential supplies to the public at large. And also, while doing so, making sure that our operations continued, we had to make sure that the health and safety of our employees and the workplace was maintained all the time. So I think today I could not join while this introduction was being done, but what I know of is we would have more than 100 years of enriched work experience amongst the panelists today. And interestingly, each one of us would bring in diverse industry vertical experience. We have team members from Eveready, we have Spark Minda team members, and we have a team member from 𝐿 and Appolo Tyres. And each one of us bring in that our respective industry vertical wise experience and also wisdom. And I would request that participants to give their undivided attention for the next 35-40 minutes, wherein through questions and discussions we will be able to cover items and topics which will be of significant value to the participants, and not just theoretical. We will not be talking about theoretical possibilities. The intent is to cover practical and provide practical insights on the technologies which will shape the future of manufacturing. So, and I would request that you can put your questions on the chat box, and we'll try to respond to as many as possible. And so here we go. Let's start with this topic, and let's talk about pointers to demystify AI, okay, artificial intelligence, as it's said. So my take on AI is that earlier we used to call AI as artificial intelligence, but now it's slowly and surely transitioning into actionable intelligence, okay, and this will actually help and is helping companies to drive real outcomes, real business outcomes, which matter to the business. So, and we are seeing increased usage of AI in terms of in production lines to optimize, and basically businesses are able to spot areas of improvement from a large set of database or data points, so to say. Sometimes you would have 100 parameters, say in a reactor, you may have 100 parameters or more, which influence the output of the reactor or of that particular process. And to imagine that a human being would be able to consistently keep track of those 100 plus or thousands of parameters and make sure that each one of those parameters would run at the most optimal all the time, it's impractical, so to say, on a 24/7 basis. And But then we also know that no, if that's not done, then the process would actually be running at a suboptimal level, because then you would take a margin of safety and then you would run at a suboptimal level so that you don't breach that threshold. But if you were to use technologies like AI, then you can run the process effectively, efficiently, and also within the safe guardrail, so to say. So my question first to our team member from Mahindra, Mr. Vikram, is that in your view, is AI on its way to create smart digital factories, and how do you think it's shaping up? Yeah, Vikram.
Thank you. Hi, Atul. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well, very well.
Nice. So I'm back to office, and so I'm on a mask mode now, at least until that seriousness sticks. Yeah. Sorry about that. So to respond to your question in terms of how does this smart AI or smart X, smart Y get into the picture of delivering better value, better efficiency, and so on, right? So most of these, when we start with let's make something smarter, then we have a pain point with respect to over dependency on people and over dependency on in certain cases wastage, sustainability, and so on, and all of it comes down to having the proper machinery, the proper measurement, and the right usage, right? And all of it at scale in a real-time basis. We are looking at stage one, collecting data from wherever possible and using kits and using stop gaps that can initially create this flow of data, right? Be it a temperature sensor on top of robots, whatnot, and then assessing if all of this factory floor is running efficiently to the extent of just analyzing this data. That is stage one. So these are all like, what's the ROI for my use case? And then you get to a band-aid use case, saying your quality tester is not available today. Let's deploy a small cobot there, and then ensure that this computer vision takes care of figuring out cracks or scratches or whatnot on your material. So this is one way to get isolated use cases as a starting point. Then comes your platform efficiency in terms of having a shop floor digitalization tool. There are many plug-in tools which help us with wiring the existing MES systems into those tools. Again, a far stretch from an overall a rip-off and replace with. Some companies do it. Some companies do it at a different scale. But for the most part, in my opinion, when we try to make something smarter, it helps when we improve our capability also to digest that data and not create artificial anxieties around this. So in my opinion, smart X, smart Y is all about first creating these data pipelines, and second, creating intelligence out of these data pipelines. Third is to create efficiencies, at least in isolated spots. And then with that, we would have made the case clear in terms of a target investment, in terms of a target priority of what needs to be automated next.
Okay. So I just before I move on to the other fellow panelists, I just also want to understand. One is that of course you need to have clarity of purpose in terms of what problem we are trying to solve, or what are these what is the art of the possible using these new age technologies, because sometimes you don't have a problem to solve. And if you were to go out, reach out to different departments asking for problems, they would say, no, we are running fine for the last 10, 15 years doing the same thing. There's no problem whatsoever. So you rather concentrate on something else, or some other department. Having said that, are you seeing AI actually driving or being able to create smarter factories in India? Do you see that pattern emerging, at least in terms of pilots being done, or actual use cases which you would know of within your own entity or somewhere wherein you would know of based on your experience?
So once you start collecting data, that is when you have evidence to prove that there is an inefficiency. So what you'll have to start with is throw that investment in and start collecting data. So there are cases where traceability of components, traceability of finished goods, when there is a certain defect for a finished line vehicle, there are multiple ways to log those defects where people go in with recording it in different ways. And then this vehicle gets out into the parking lot, and then there is a job 2 or a second sequence run of defective vehicles after fixing that defect. Now there is a problem of somebody locating this vehicle. You have been assigned defect number 1, and then you locate this vehicle, and then you drive it out, do whatever is necessary, and then bring it back into the assembly line. So locating this vehicle, defective vehicle itself, was went through different iterations of RFID, Bluetooth Low Energy, and so on. And then recording the defect took 3-4 minutes to spell it out. And now everything happens on voice. The classification of these defects is on voice to look at which bay this vehicle has to be driven to. And then based on this categorization of this defect, immediately there is a supplier notice, supplier chargeback, supplier warranty condition driven, and so on. So once the data types are in place, we have better respect in terms of proving our point.
Yeah, understood. I think interesting, I would say. That brings me to probe Arup from Eveready on his views on how does he see AI, and does he see any potential of AI being able to create smarter factories in India? So Arup, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so definitely there is a scope of creating smarter factories, but for us it has been more of data intelligence, that had to be managed because once upon a time when the pandemic set in, we had to work with 50% staff in the factories. So that was a mandate. Now with 50% staff, you still had to maintain an upstream and downstream efficiency of whatever it was post-pandemic stage, so that your inventory levels are properly maintained. So that meant integrating certain devices in the upstream and downstream manufacturing system with some data points, which would constantly throw up, sensors, targeting the sensors to throw up data, which would actually show you production efficiencies, what is the kind of quality control that you're doing, what is the kind of maintenance levels that are required, preventive as well as breakdown, so that your efficiency levels are almost same with 50% of the workforce. So this is the kind of thing that we did, and doing that, what happened was we turned out with a huge amount of data which used to flow into the system. Now we had to devise a mechanism of making sense out of that data and creating proper intelligence out of that data to take decisions. That is where I see the manufacturing industry heading at this point in time. Of course, there are advanced manufacturing systems who are completely going to be dependent on AI, like the automotive sector or the pharma sector, etc. In our case, it is mainly the FMCG products that we manufacture. And for us, it is more of data intelligence and also managing the transport fleet, through proper tracking to understand where they are and how they can be managed, the inventory levels, etc. So these are the basic things that we had to manage post pandemic, and our efficiency level almost remained the same. if not, it had gone up to a certain extent.
So if I have to just to summarize what I hear from you is that given this pandemic situation, you were kind of there was a demand to make sure that because of the limited availability of manpower on the shop floor, you had to still, because you had to maintain efficiencies, you couldn't because you couldn't, the market was not ready to pay higher prices regardless. They will always look at other options then. So to make sure that your price points and you had the cost were under control, so you kind of created a integration of some sensors, addition of sensors across the value stream, upstream and downstream of the manufacturing also. You were able to clearly create a kind of a data lake and a higher visibility across the value stream to be able to figure out what's going right or wrong, and then maybe able to course correct at that point of time, on a near real time basis, rather than looking at it retrospectively.
Yes.
Find very great inputs, I must say, both Arup and Vikram. And that brings me to my dear friend, not to mention that Vikram or Arup are not, but Ashok, we've been connected for many, many years. And a follow-up question to Ashok and then to Kuldeep would be that can we say that AI and ML both as a technology are no longer a hype and are actually a potent tool to realize the vision of a smart factory or smart factories in India? Do we find that? Can we make that statement? If yes, what could be the basis on that?
So I'm sorry, I just got late. I apologize to everyone. So few initial minutes I missed. So just repeating, understanding my question, you say that this AI and ML has a potential to make the smart factories. Does that statement is correct?
Yeah,
that is what. Yes. Good evening, friend. Yes, this is the correct statement. AI ML has a lot of potential to make the smart factories. Atul and Atul, as Atul said, he and me connected for a long time, and Atul has saw me. I worked in the different industries, right? And since last 2 years, I'm in the auto component industry. Fairly new to me. Earlier, I worked a long time in the consumer, right? In the auto component industry also, when I saw, so today also, see, everybody can talk about the smart factories. But the reality is that whenever you go on this factory shop floor, everyone will realize it is like a railway station today. Long queue of the people, long queue of the machines, right? Maybe few people from earlier, it was 20 people, now it has come 10. But still, it is not the, what we say that the people less or man less, no, it is not there. Still, people are doing this one. If you target to the sum of the world leader factories, those we get out of India, right? That still is not there, so we are achieving that target. AI ML is definitely will play a good role over here, right? So I think in our case, we are targeting few of the implementation which we did in the last 1 year, right? We have targeted the 3-4 parameters very clearly, right, to make the smart factories, right? One is that how end-to-end process, if it is the takes 30 minutes, bring it to the 10 minutes, right? So this is one of the parameter of the smart factories, so how fast you process, right? Another parameter is that today, if you need 10 people at the 10 stages for the 30-minute process, how can you bring down these 10 people to the 2 people or 3 people, so that you most of the stages you automate, right? And third thing is that while doing this one, are you helping for to increase some profitability, EBITDA or manpower efficiency of the company? And how do you do this one? You may reduce the rejection, you may reduce the manpower, metal consumption, or something like this one. And last most important parameter we are taken as that is how do it is helping to the customer. All right. So I will like to give how AI ML is definitely helping for the smart factory with the use case, which we recently implemented. So we manufacture a car handle, right? We manufacture the car handle. And typically we saw there is a bigger problem in our few of the factories for shade mismatch, right? So if you take the red color car, right, then your car handle you're manufacturing. In a day, you may manufacture 20,000 handle, right? It has to be colored and it goes to this one. The inspection, the quality inspection was still a manual dependent on the person. So maybe 4, 5, 6 people, every shift, 3 to 4 people on the one factory, multi-factory, one factory, used to inspect and they reject, accept, reject, accept, reject, accept, reject, accept. What we did, we actually implemented the smart cameras, IoT devices, shade matching machine over there, actually on the production line. We found, right, our cycle time of the total quality checking on the one line is reduced by 60%. Though it is not an encouraging figure for me. Maybe I would have targeted less than 80% because when automation happens, it has to be. But yes, maturity will take us some time, right? The cycle time has reduced by roughly 60%. Most importantly, our customer complaint, which used to come maybe from the OEM 7 to 8 times in a month, has reduced less than 1 in a month. So we got a better customer satisfaction. By reducing the number of people, those are required and specific skill job, right, where their vision is good and they decide whether it is doing or not, these are color shade match or not, we reduce manpower by 1/3, right? And this ultimately has added a value benefit to us. So these are the value parameters to us. Definitely this has added to this one. Now how AI/ML has helped us? So now AI/ML has helped us. Even in the manual process, there was a flaw. Whenever the manual process was there, they used to match the sample to sample. Is it correct or not? Still in the color, our human eyes still accept some variation, which we didn't realize, right? That variation acceptance was not possible through manual process. When we do the automation, when we did the automation of this one, we given a range. So if you red color, right, there were the RGB patterns of the higher to maximum with the tolerance limit. And we found this is well accepted by the customer also, consumer also, because they didn't realize immediately there is a validation. Now the AI/ML algorithm has helped us. So the whatever the statement Atul, you are suggesting, does it is helping the smart factory? Yes, my strong belief is yes, it is helping the strong factory. This is one of the cases, and there are many such cases I can give.
Yeah, thanks. I think very well illustrated, and I actually echo what you said completely, Ashok. Is that no matter what, and we may be talking about the greatest and the latest of technology, but unless it dials into some real business outcomes, like you spoke about the reduction in cycle time, optimizing manpower, and optimizing manpower should not ever be construed as we are laying off manpower. It's always redeploying them for better purpose. So that's another very great important. And then of course the CSAT scores or the customer satisfaction levels improvement. That brings a lot of credibility. It's not just about that complaint. It's about building credence, confidence for the company. So it has a far bearing impact. Great input, I would say. I think we generally would agree and are in sync that AI is no longer a hype or a buzzword, and has tremendous, I would say, huge opportunities. Let's get deeper, and I'm sure Kuldeep is just waiting to come out and share his views. So Kuldeep, over to you, and would like to know about some of the use cases you would have seen with your experience, or how actually AI is currently changing the manufacturing landscape. You might talk about some experiences in your particular enterprise or something which you would know of. Over to you, Kuldeep.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Atul, and hello everyone. I mean, I was hearing all the great insights from you, and it is really very knowledgeable things for me, at least on some of the manufacturing industries. I'm comparatively new in the manufacturing. I've worked most of my career in the consumer goods company, but I must say that whatever I've learned so far, AI/ML has been definitely making a huge difference in the manufacturing industries. So I come from a tire industry. And then this is something, you would have not even thought 10 years back that, artificial intelligence can be something which will bring certain changes in the tire industries, or there might be something called a machine learning from the tire industry point of view. Ultimately, there was a manufacturing system, a planning system. You simply go put the manufacture the tires basis the kind of vehicles and the demands, and simply distribute it. But now if you see, AML is making huge impact. So if I be very, very specific to my industry, one of the big use cases what we are taking a help of AML is in terms of defect systems. So when we create the tires, obviously this is to be quite this is to be very, very specific. The tires has to come from all government norms. It has to be 100% defect free and all. And because of that, a lot of time goes, a lot of losses were happening. Once you create a tire, right? You spend all the money on that. And if it does not pass even one test case on that, this is of no use. The tire has been defected and it will be literally, thrown at that time. And so this, the defect systems, so we've been using kind of X-ray systems on that. There are further evaluation has been done that how exactly we will create the zero defect using AI. So instead, things have been getting failed during the test. These are getting identified during the manufacturing itself and getting corrected there. The other thing, what you see is the AIML. And as I said, I'm going to be very specific of my industries because for the wider case in this case, I think that how do we know that a tire is being, how much time a tire has been used? It was always on a reactive basis where somebody's all the customers or consumers, when they use and then they come back and saying, okay, fine, I have completed so many number of whatever years, days, or I have completed so much kilometers. Is it a need for me to change the tire? There's no proactive approaching has been happening. In today's time, what we are also looking, though we are very far to implement it, but we've been kind of looking is saying, how will we make it a proactive approach to the customers, saying, sir, you already have completed so many number of kilometers or so much number of time, and it's a time for you to change the tire, because ultimately tire is one of the very, very specific and very delicate thing from the safety point of view. From all automotive industries, if you see, tire creates equivalently much bigger impact on the safety. If you see in the manufacturing system, so the whole planning, most of the planning was manual earlier. Now with all the systems, Siemens has been coming up with a lot of automated systems. We have a lot of other companies which have been coming with advanced manufacturing planning. Those are actually not only helping to create the tires more accurate, more faster, but also giving us more opportunities to design it perfectly as per customer or consumer demand. In that case, most of the automotive industries have been coming with their own ideas, and entire industry need to develop it or need to implement it. So I think AIML is a buzzword in today's time. Industry 4.0 is fully dependent on AIML, and this is up to us. We all as leaders, it's important that how do we really make a utilization of that. We heard a lot of cases from Vikram, Arup, and Ashok on that. But you see, whether it is any kind of manufacturing industry, I think AIML is something what cannot be ignored in today's era. And this is a future. Whoever will take a right, whichever the industry will take a right use of the AIML will be succeeded in future. And we will see this 10 years down the line. We'll see there'll be more automation, there'll be more machine learning and all the manufacturing industry. And that's how I see this. I become really interested when we talk about the AIML piece.
I think quite promising, I would say, Kuldeep. And I completely go with you that tires, but in particular, they sound so commodity. But if you were to realize that they are, it's basically human lives are dependent on those tires actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just not lives, livelihoods, and so much more. And you spoke about how we actually, through the entire processing, even if at the end there is one defect, that just one defect would put it off and you need to reject it, and it's a huge loss to the setup. Completely agree. And I think that brings us to another promising technology, which we should discuss, and we'll keep our responses short in the interest of time. And this is around the augmented reality, and augmented reality, we all know, it would help us enable hands-off remote assistance. Okay, it also a kind of it enables connecting to remote workers and experts, while they are working from elsewhere. So, and because during the pandemic, with skeleton crew and team members, we had to run our plans. So, but I'm not too sure how many of us would have implemented AR in our respective setups. But I can tell you for sure that the basis studies which I did, I find that the latest and the new manufacturing plants, at least in Europe and more developed nations, not that we are not developed anymore, we are developed, but slightly more developed nations, we are finding that the companies are leveraging 5G, robotics, AI, ML, additive printing and manufacturing, and including robotics and AR to make sure that they achieve higher workplace productivity. And I also want to highlight one important aspect that we talk about productivity, efficiency. One aspect which is extremely important in current times is availability of skilled manpower. That's getting scarce because the senior individuals in the factories, they are on the verge of superannuation, and then you also have these team members, the freshers, who may not be as experienced to contribute or to address issues at that point of time. So do you think, I would come back to Vikram, are you seeing practical usage of technologies like augmented realities in workplaces in India?
Yes, Atul. Yes, Atul. My experience is largely with usage of AR for two use cases, and not related to factory digitalization. Right? We've used it in service where, like you rightly said, there is a high attrition and it is a mostly outsourced job family. So what happens is that the level of refresh when it comes to the service personnel is very high usually, and the training cost or the training window is not an excuse for a subpar customer experience. So what happens is the app that we developed for AR app that we developed at Ford for servicing is for the executive to service. Take an iPad or a tablet and then hover it around different parts and have the ability to so two things. One is to detect what that part is, and second, have the ability to label that part and send it for a subsequent evaluation. This is one. Second is by collecting this data, we understood that there is a lot of serial number mismatch and third-party parts getting swapped and so on. So this led to an overall initiative of traceability where the serial number of original parts also is being tracked as part of the video. So you are taking liability only for the serial number that you supplied for that vehicle, right? So that's that way it was helpful in servicing. Second is also during these pandemic times, it was difficult for us to find expert service advisors everywhere. So when Teams call was difficult to hold one thing here and then show it on the camera, and bad lighting, bad angles, and so on. This was really helpful to create some sort of a 3D experience, near human touch experience, especially where safety was a concern.
Yeah.
Right. Again, another AR implementation for customer experience was in all of these. You would have seen virtual showrooms, but most of these times we were not able to create the experience of bringing the car to your house, parking that car inside your house, seeing if it fits, seeing your car's color along with your house's color, and so on. So at Nissan, we created this garage experience using AR, where you just you visit the showroom and then understand, maybe only one color is there. For the most part, only the advertised color will be available. And then you could actually see if there is a different color that fits with your house, with your other car in the house, and so on. So for that, we used AR. You could call it a toy. It was meant only for that. No serious business purpose to it. But yeah, it helps with the overall pre-buying experience. You can actually, if all of these manufacturers have that feature, you will be able to see how different cars sit in your house.
No, perfect. I think I would request Kuldeep to share his views on whether and how does he see AR evolving as a useful tool or a technology in workplaces, and whether he finds it promising enough.
This is, I mean, there's no discussion. So I would say both AR, VR been making a huge difference. It's just that, how available was it so far in the industry was a big question. Now, when we have a proven technologies, I think most of the industries have been kind of trying to take an advantage of AR, especially even in manufacturing, right? We discussed about a lot of facts, and I also talked about safety. Now, safety is kind of touching to each and every segment in the manufacturing industry. And why not? If you have AR as a tool available, it's always being beneficial. Only on the safety perspective, if I say. But there are everything. If you see, using the AR, we can see the performance, we can see the response time, we can definitely see the user's feedback, we can see the customer's feedback at that time. We can actually take a costing advantage also at that time. So everything, if you see all the factors which matter from the augmented reality point of view, is something which gives a real-time experience. Take an example when so I'll correlate it with something with a hardcore consumer goods company. So not exactly AR, but we had a virtual reality concept at that time, and there was a virtual store was created where the expressions of the customers were getting captured at that time when they were visiting to the virtual store. You don't need the real store to be visited. Now look for that. AR is the next level when you can actually collect everything in terms of impression, in terms of feedback, in terms of response, in terms of all your projections in advance. And then AR also gives us a lot of benefit in terms of timelines. In today's time, where decisions to be taken faster, the reports is to be submitted much faster, business has no patience to really try things. I think AR is a response or is an answer of all of those questions. So it definitely makes a huge difference. So ultimately, if I say in a nutshell, all of this automation is only taking manufacturing industry on a next level, and be it everything, be it on automotive industries, be it in tire industries, be it in any kind of manufacturing for that matter. Smart factories, which have been coming up now, which is reducing the overall response time, if I say. Take an example of our own industry. We have a plant which has been running 20-25 years old, and that plant is having certain number of tires getting manufactured every day, but it goes on a lot of manual process. And then we have a latest plant also which has been fully automated, utilizing as much as capabilities of the AI/ML and even AR in that way. And we have the potential with the sizing, with the lower cost, what has been invested. This has a capacity to produce 10 times more tires on that, and that too with zero defects. As I said, that's the target in that case. So AR definitely, I would not say it's a future. I mean, we are very past of that era when we call it future. We are already living in present of that, and it's all up to us as a manufacturing industry leaders is saying that. How will we really adopt? So adoption is very important. It's a key. We have to start trusting on these technologies and take more and more advantage of that.
Correct. I think great point. I just also, for the interest of the participants, would like to highlight that we often talk about AR and VR as if they are similar techs, which you mentioned. They are not. They are very different technology. But AR in in an essence, no, if I were to give a view. So suppose this is a stamp, yeah, no, you have this. And if we were to use AR, so what would happen is using AR, I would be able to figure out and understand more about the context, about the top handle, the bottom base, and everything. You can digitally augment data points and annotate knowledge, pertinent knowledge around it. And this is one object. This could be a critical machinery. This could be a component, or it could be any process training, orientation. You can annotate that, and it becomes so user friendly, and it creates a very enriching experience rather than a classroom experience, wherein you show something on PowerPoint. Nobody will be able to make head and tail of what is being explained. People doze off. But then if you were to use AR for such orientations, for such trainings, or even for remote assistance, the whole premise, it creates a very different experience and a different outcome altogether. I would also like to learn from.
Atul, I'll add something, because this is quite beneficial to everyone, because you put a very, very interesting point in terms of the trainings or the remote assistance using the AR. And I just want to tell you something right now, AR is a response of all this, the one what we are facing due to COVID. In today's time, where travel is a challenge, where availability is a challenge, you can't have the talent has been going from one place to other. AR is a response. So if I say in our industry, we're using a technology called real wear, if I can just name it, and then using this technology, we're really finding a benefit, because this is where sitting on one place, using this virtual lenses and all, a person sitting on other side can definitely feel that he's sitting next to the machinery, and he can guide as good as like he's virtually seeing it. And this is way beyond on videos or audios and all, where only by your voice commands the machine operates, and all instructions have been taken. So this time, not only the cost, but also the time what has been gone on the travel, searching on a hunt of a talent at that time has been gone in that case.
Perfect.
So that's a very good example.
Perfect. So I think I would now request Ashok to share his views around if he would have seen any use cases of AR in his industry, the current one, or the paint industry in which he spent considerable time earlier. Any thoughts, Ashok, on this?
Rightly. This is a good background and inputs from Kuldeep, right? And Vikram. Service industry, in my past, service industry, we use this kind of, especially when I was in paint industry, right, to explain the customer how their home will look like after painting. So we use this one. Fairly in auto industry, I don't know about other industries, but here we are trying to onboard some kind of the use cases using AR VR. So we have a state-of-the-art facility, our R&D center in Pune, where we do the development of the many new products. Right, the product development happens over there. You must be knowing that InFact is a new joint venture we have taken over here. Now this joint venture recently 2 months back we did it. Right, it's a Korean company, right? Which through which the collaboration we are developing some system, some sensor for the two-wheelers, wherein while driving the two-wheelers, there will be the automatic alerts to the driver if he's tilting it too much. So there may be a chance that he will slip. Right. So we are working on this one. So how do the risk safety is important. So you are driving the two-wheelers, you are driving the bike, and sometimes what happens, you tilt it so much that there's a chance that you will slip now, right? Accident will happen. In that case, that alert will be there. So that balancing, so this kind of a product, a very innovative product we are using. Now in one of the discussion also we are there. So there we thought of how do we do the testing? Right, we are developing this product, right? How our engineering team will actually really feel before it giving to any customer or any OEM, right? So this kind of testing is to be done, or during the product development phase also, if you want to do something and know the product exactly how it will work, right? There we are trying to use the AR/VR, though this is our likely project, right? But these are the use cases are being discussed and debated a lot, right? So I think there is a potential is there. Manufacturing first time I'm seeing this kind of the discussion debate are happening. In service, it is very common. Like I gave you the paint industry, right? How do you look like, how this one? But in service industry and manufacturing, I see, oh, yes, where can we use it over here? So that before going to product in the market, how product will behave on the road. Right. In the recent sales also, we are working on some gear system. Right. Most of the vehicle has a problem with when sometimes gear gets locked or it's hard. Right. So now when these products are getting developed in the lab, how they will feel. Right. So here AR and VR, this reality, they can actually feel whether our product will fit or not fit or where the risk is there. So these use cases, Atul, we are discussing over here.
Great. I think fantastic. And you spoke about R&D. So that brings me to a very interesting point, which I'm sure most of you would completely agree with me that within manufacturing, if you were to holistically look at the spend, and this is one of the questions one of the participants has just asked also a while back, that management always asks a question that Neeraj Srivastava has asked this question, that management asks that how much of automation is good and whether we need further mechanization, or how much expense do we make, or what kind of spend do we make in automation. So I'm tempted to mention that if you were to look at the spend, if you were to do a spend analysis of manufacturing entities on an average, I would say across verticals, you would find that if you talk about automation, yes, you would have automation spend around the R&D efforts. Okay, you may have instrumentation control for R&D and whatever best of the breed for process control maybe. But otherwise, digital linked investments have been low. I'm not talking about spending on collaboration tools, which are now must-haves. I would not even call it digital linked investment. It's a business imperative. So you need to have it. It's a cost of doing business now. But other digital linked investments have been low. And when I say low, I'm not talking about absolute spend. I'm talking about the percentage in terms of the overall revenue the company generates. That percentage continues to be low. However, we at one end, we speak about smart factories and these topics. What is important is that to learn from fellow panelists that how do we sell this concept of smart manufacturing to the C-suite, to the other C-suite members. We are also amongst the C-suite, so to say, but how do we sell this concept of smart manufacturing to the C-suite? And I would request Arup from Eveready, because he always would be ready with answers, Eveready. So with the answers. So I would request Arup to respond to this question first before I move over to the other panelists, please. Arup, over to you.
So at the end of the day, people will look at ROI.
Yeah.
So you should not really restrict yourself to short term.
Yeah.
So short term, you might face heavy investment costs in terms of smart manufacturing, but in the long run, when the operations efficiency is around 80%, 85%, where today you are running at maybe 75%, so that is where the ROI will come in. Plus, the smart manufacturing facilities that we are talking about will require much lesser manpower. Maybe skilled manpower, but much lesser manpower, because the entire thing is automated and integrated completely. It will also throw up enough data for you to take proper pinpointed decisions. Okay, so that is how we need to put up a case to the other C-suite members so that investment comes in. But at the end of the day, the investment has to come in, because smart manufacturing will obviously need much more investment compared to traditional manufacturing. That is known, but that is also known to the C-suite members. They are only looking for how we can actually talk about ROI. What is the kind of turnaround time that we are looking at? Whether it is 3 years, 5 years, what is the kind of turnaround time? And then once they are convinced, things become smooth.
I agree with you, Arup, but I just also want to highlight that no, unlike a capex spend on buying a higher sized pump or a bigger machinery or a lathe machine or any other such equipment, turbine or a boiler unit, wherein you buy an equipment, you know that no, this is the steam you will generate, this is the coal consumption which will go down. Sometimes in an IT or a technology project, it's very difficult to give an absolute quantification of the ROI or the TCO. Also, in some cases, TCO also is not known. Forget the ROI preciseness. So I align with you that no, it's very important to take a decision that no, whether to invest, whether not to invest. It has to be based on ROI. But I also want to highlight on other aspect which we use in our entity and which will be of interest to others is I often, when we have this discussion, we also look at the generation, from a viewpoint that no, if you were to look at the current set of employees, the new generation employees who are digital natives, for them to be for us to absorb them and to make sure that they continue to work with us, we need to provision them with tools, technologies which they can appreciate and be they be comfortable working with. If we were to ask them to stand on that railway station as no, Ashok mentioned, or that bus station, doing that same menial manual day work day after day, they might not find it interesting enough, and maybe they might look for better opportunities, which will be far more interesting. So from that standpoint, no, those discussions also sometimes help, and to drive and implement such new age technologies to make sure that no, you are in sync with the outside world, the way in the personal individuals are using technology in their personal lives. At least some part of it gets captured or gets replicated in the professional work stream as well. So I would quickly also like to hear from Ashok. And before I do go to Ashok, maybe Kuldeep, if you could also highlight in a minute, please, so that we can then conclude each one of you in a minute, so that on this topic around how do you, what's your pitch when you talk about smart manufacturing to the C-suite? What's your pitch? Yeah.
See, smart manufacturing is a big word. It's we can be as much as smart possible. There'll be always add on. But I would say, yeah, it's ultimately is a crux what we are discussing so far. See, what is smart manufacturing? Where we have minimal human intervention, where we will see machines have been doing most of the work, and you just feed the data and take the or in a way you just provide the input and you take the output out. So I would say yes. I mean, that's the goal. That's where we all are moving. IT plays a very, very critical role in making our industries as smart industries or smart factories. And this is in addition to everything what we are trying to bring on table. Industries like Rockwell, industries like Siemens, I mentioned, are offering, and there are a lot of technologies available which has been bringing. Many companies have been using their in-house technologies also to make it as a smart factories in today's time. Like we as a company use one in-house developed tools. Obviously that's not been that great, but it is serving certain level of purpose on the industries. So if I just summarize it, yes, for me the smart factories is the future. All the manufacturing, if I specifically talk about the tire industry, safety is most important. And being a smart factory, while this will give us a better output, we cannot have any kind of errors also created by machines. So this makes a lot of sense. This creates the report, the dashboards to the industry leaders and the leadership team internally in that way. So yes, that's what I would say. It's also important to see the driver's behavior. If I talk about again, so how exactly we manufacture, we create it more smarter at our site to get a specific outputs.
Perfect. Yeah. Kuldeep, your thoughts. Sorry, Kuldeep, I covered. Ashok, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, see, Atul, as you rightly said, and Arup also said, right, the smart manufacturing technology adoption, many times it's difficult that IT conveys to do this investment, right? My stake on this one is that, see, ultimately it is not the IT or CIO who is responsible for technology adoption in the organization. It's the leadership team. Right, and so the first is that is a company culture. If company decides to invest into the technology, definitely there will be a technology investment will be there. Right. So I will never say, okay, no, IT is responsible if technology adoption is not there. No, it is not there. It is a collective responsibility. CIO has to come on front, where the CIO plays the role as that to assist and to work with these all CXO to convert in some measurable form. My stake on whether we are justifying the TCO or ROI or not, right? My experience until now is that we as a technology leader should be capable to work with the CXO and convert every benefit in the numbers. Okay. That is very important. Unless you don't put up in terms of the numbers in the measurable form, people will not get convinced, right? So I just told process efficiency. I can talk 10 minutes on the process efficiency. But unless I don't say your cycle time today is at 10 minutes, it will come to the 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 6 minutes, nobody will get convinced. Right. Typically, Atul, what we did here in my organization, we have a project team or other leadership team who converts every such a big investment in some form of the measurable format. Right. And there we say, okay, now from here, you can say whether to invest or not to invest. If you are able to see my screen, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, but
so what we do, so even if it is something is not measurable, right? Qualitative, like process efficiency, still we put up some number over here, right? So you can see there are the many parameters. Those doesn't give the dollar saving. Maybe they are not giving the dollar saving to us, no problem. But still, we need to convert that into the number. This is very essential. Sometimes I say raw material cost I will save by this crore. And at the same time, I will say that process cycle time will be reduced by the 30%. Unless I don't put up this number, right, I am not getting any buying, any approval internally. And unless I don't learn that skill, I think technology adoption will be difficult. Though I am saying technology adoption is the responsibility of the organization and not only left with the CIO of the organization.
Yeah, of course, but I just also want to highlight that, as you rightly said, it's very important for the office of the CIO or the CTO or the CDO, whatever name we want to give it, to be able to be articulate enough and to be able to express the potential and the likely benefits to the other C-suite members, for them to make a informed decision on whether to go ahead or not to go ahead.
Correct.
And for that, the CIO needs to be extremely confident and be aware about the limitations and the possibilities these technologies can bring to the table. I think great thoughts. Vikram, any closing remarks before we conclude?
No, all interesting conversations. So again, some of these seem like, especially what Ashok showed, right? It needs a lot of preparation in terms of doing something, and that preparation actually is sometimes too much, and that makes it very difficult to run every small proposal in terms of how much do I spend, how much do I earn, and oftentimes what happens is that the ROI works on a multi-year revenue or a multi-year opportunity. And most of these digital tweaks and tools, they are to, one, check if experimentally are we capable of doing something, right? So let's say this computer vision tool to check on the reflection or scratch resistance of specific surfaces. So it is practically not something that we would go and rip off the quality division in every plant, every line. It costs about 60,000 rupees per camera. It needs 6 cameras to run all dimensions, and it is apparently not something. It needed almost like 30 lakhs to run this for a month, including the analytics. So nobody will immediately rip off the manual function and replace it with this. But if there is a scene where we would use this instead of stopping that function overall, then we would allude to it. And with time, what happens is that, so right now we have Amazon cameras, CCTV cameras for 2,000 rupees, which we have fit instead of the industry standard 60 megapixel, 70 megapixel camera, with a lower refresh rate, of course, and we are improving the algorithm to do a decent job there. So eventually all of this setup cost will become cheaper, and then we can scale. So the ROI equation becomes a problem, especially for somebody like me who's not as prepared as Ashok is to respond as to, why should you do this now? So this is cost. Sorry.
Yeah, carry.
Sorry, Ashok. So
no, I had one problem for one input to this forum, and especially to Atul. Sometimes I say, in some of the organization or in the even individual for the culture change, accidents are important sometimes, small accidents, to realize the value of insurance. Right. So few things as a hygiene. Few things as a hygiene has to be investigated, right? And you have to leave it with the leadership team, and they will also realize, okay, no, these are the hygiene things, and it has to be investigated. There is nothing. Like Atul was referring one point for the new generation. You have to have your neat, clean factories, which looks like a technology in our factories, right? This is the need of the hour now, right? You cannot have too much of debate on this one, right? These are become a hygiene factor. Today, smartphone, using you as a smartphone has become a practice. I mean, this is a mandate, right? Something like this one. So these are the hygiene factors. So sometimes accidents, small accidents may be beneficial.
So Ashok, I don't know about the accidents and all. I can't say, as I come from a tire industry, but I fully agree with you. CIOs or the IT carries the responsibility to make the to business case or to justify, and that's why we can call ourselves as an enabler of this. We are the enabler of AI, ML or AR, VR. But yeah, the adoption has to come from the industry. Adoption has to come from the wider leadership, and the complete CXO forum has to adopt it, because we can only enable it. How will you adopt is there with the real business at that time to do. So IT is an enabler or a driver or whatever you call. But at the end of the day, the whole passenger who will reach from one place to other place is our whole business at that time. And we should have a capability to create that value proposition. So I fully align with you. That is, the adoption is very important. I will say one simple example which we are facing, which we face a challenge is, take an example of Microsoft Teams or Zoom. Initially, there was so much of resistance, but today the whole world has been running on that, right? Because adoption is something which is important, and we have to create that value.
Perfect. I think in the any closing remarks you want to give, I think Vikram, you had a point which you wanted to make, or are you?
I'm good, Atul. Thanks.
I think perfect. I think we've just I think been able to complete in time. I will say we started a couple of minutes late. Very interesting and engaging session, I would say, and a lot of learnings for each one of us. Not just for the participant, and I sincerely hope the participants would have found it extremely relevant for purpose and will have important and practical takeaways from this session. We've covered topics and of course with use cases, and not just theoretical Google cited topics, but actual use cases on how these current age, I use the word current age, not futuristic tech, current age technologies like AI, ML or IoT, AR are helping lower the error rates, and you are able to reduce rejections, reworks, optimize on cycle time as mentioned, and also improve your inventory turnover. And of course, doing all of this, you are able to reduce your associated costs, which the manufacturers are facing historically. And one important aspect which I want to highlight here, and this is for the participants to clearly understand and take note of, is that in current times, compliances and safety related issues are something which you can't negotiate. Though the cost of compliances are going higher by the day, because you need to be these are getting far more stringent, are getting digitally enabled. So there is a significant higher cost of achieving that degree of compliance. At the same time, the cost of non-compliance is prohibitive, which means that these new age technologies which we are talking about, be it a connected factory or use of AI ML, which will be able, using which you can have a 24/7 view of what the operations are and look at the critical aspect, and then be able to plug any lapses or any gaps or issues which come on a near real-time basis. All that is important. So as mentioned that before any event happens, it's always important that we are able to predict it to that effect and then act on it rather than reacting on it much later. I'm thankful to the entire team again, to 𝐀𝐮𝐿 team and the fellow panelists for sharing their thoughts, their wisdom, and enlightening each one of us and the participants. Thank you so much. And I hope participants also enjoyed as much as we did. Thanks a lot.